Race fans, it's time to buckle in and listen to the fastest hour in racing radio. Your driver is a multi-time NASCAR winner and Hall of Famer Mark Martin. We cover racing, grassroots, history, we bench race, we talk life, and most importantly, we smash the loud pedal. It's time to turn some laps on the Mark Martin Podcast.
Episode number 44 of the Mark Martin Podcast, and we're going to get into a very pivotal year in Mark's career. It was moving to a new team and a new environment with Ginn Racing and then into DEI, 2007 and 2008 on episode number 44. But before we do that, make sure to go to the website, markmartinpod.com, markmartinpod.com. Make sure to listen to all of the old episodes. Go and subscribe on your favorite podcast player, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. Make sure to connect with us on social media at Mark Martin Pod on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But Mark, this is you're wrapping up your career. It's starting to wind down, you think, and then you change teams and go to a whole different environment in 2007.
One of the things about this 01 car deal was that Bobby Ginn had bought out MB2, and Bobby Ginn was sold. I was sold on the fact that Bobby Ginn had lots of money, and of course they had sponsors for two cars. They were running Sterling, Marlin, I think, in a car, and had sponsorship for that. And of course they had the Army sponsorship and had for several years. And then they had Bobby Ginn, who had supposedly lots of money. And the guy that I dealt with on a daily basis was Jay Fry, who is an incredibly good friend of mine, who is an absolutely amazing guy, who is now the director of the IRL, IndyCar Racing. I don't know exactly what his official title is, but he runs he's at all the races, and I don't know if he's a race director or if he's the president of the series or exactly what. But Jay has really come from a college kid into the PR side of Valvoline, to worked his way all the way to running the IRL, so Indy Racing League. So pretty incredible. Jay and I are blood brothers for sure. I love Jay and he loves me. We would do anything for one another. So I'm paired up with Ryan Pemberton, who I love. Ryan came to work at Roush's on the 6 car when he was a teenager. And on my very first win in 1989, you can see him in his tire changing gear. He was one of my tire changers in 1989, working alongside his brother, Robin Pemberton. So it was pretty dang cool to drive a car that Ryan was crew chiefing, and the car had been stupid fast. It was the car that Skinner drove it. Everybody that drove it, Hall, Bud in it, Nemechek, Nadu. It's the car that Nadu got hurt in, but it was insanely fast, and so that foundation was already there. And when I strapped into this thing with this team, they were so excited to have me. It was kind of an amazing feeling. There was so much energy around it. It's unbelievable. And so we go to Daytona. They'd always had a really fast Daytona car. Always qualified really good, but never got the finishing results. In the race, they didn't race as good as they qualified. Well, we went down to the Daytona test, and I had him change on the setup, and we got the car driving like I thought it should drive. We only qualified 26, so it didn't prove to be as fast as it had in the past, but it drove really good. And so that was what was important to me. And this race goes deep into the, it goes deep into the night. I think we had rain delays or something. And it goes deep into the night. And with 25 to go, we make some kind of, we run good in the race, but with 25 to go, we make some kind of strategy call to get me in the front. And I wind up leading the race. And dude, we just lead and we lead and we lead and we lead, and they red flag it and, for whatever, and we restart and we keep leading it. And cautions, we keep leading it. After every caution, we keep the lead. I mean, it's just, this thing is looking good. Then they have a green-white checkered, and I'm still leading, going down the backstretch. And Kyle Busch is probably faster than I am, and he's right behind me. And Kyle, he is aggressive as hell, and I ain't going to give Kyle any opportunity to get by me. And so I'm running down the backstretch on the inside because Kyle's on the inside, and it's kind of one lane, and here comes the outside lane coming down the backstretch, and I see him coming. I see it's Harvick. I see him coming up the outside, and when I'm heading into 3, I'm going to tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to swing up to the top of the racetrack and give the fastest car on the racetrack the inside line and give the Daytona 500 away. And that's exactly what I think would have happened if I would have pulled up to try to block Harvick's run. I just could not afford to let Kyle get on the inside of me because I felt like I would lose the race. So I stayed on the bottom, and once Kevin gets up there a little bit, I swerve up to him to side draft him and try to slow him down a little bit. And then I swerve back down to the bottom, and I've still got Kyle behind me, and I'm coming off of 4, and I've got Kyle and a whole line of cars on the inside behind me. Fastest car on the racetrack's behind me. I mean, I don't see any way I can lose this race. And I see in my mirror the 5 car, Kyle Busch, starting to go spin around. And he spins out coming off of 4. And I'm left hanging with nobody behind me. And at that point, the rest is history. I'm ahead. I look behind me. I see the 07 car, Clint Boyer, flipping. And I'm looking ahead, and green flag's still out. And I'm thinking, man, the cautions should come out, and this thing will be over. I'm holding it wide open. I'm still ahead. I look behind. They're wrecking like crazy. And then the side draft starts to happen, and Kevin pulls ahead. And as we motor across the line, there's not time for my car to stall his and pull back ahead. And it's over. And I'm dumbfounded. I mean, there was almost no way I could lose that race until Kyle spins. But, I had to take it like a man. It was what it was. And so we ran second in the Daytona 500. And we moved ahead. We go to Fontana. The car's so fast. Qualify 3rd, finish 5th. Then the next race, we go to Vegas, qualify 14th, and finish 5th again. And then we go to Atlanta, qualify 4th, and finish 10th. And we're leading the points. One big problem. The next race is Bristol, and I'm not scheduled to run it. And there's not a way in hell I'm going to run that race because it's my weekend off. So that caused a pretty big stir in NASCAR. that the point leader wasn't gonna run, and Bristol, and I think Eric Amarola is is my driver to fill the seat in the additional races, and so I don't know if it's Eric or I think it's Eric. So anyway, that's what happened. They go to Bristol and run Bristol, and then they run the next race, and then my next race, of course, is Texas, and we go down there and run third, qualify sixth and run third. The car's just so fast. It's unbelievable. I run my races. We're just having so much fun. Running top 10 every race, top 5 a lot of the time. And I'm getting my time off. Loving my time working with Ryan Pemberton, and this life is really, really good. The experience of working with the Army, doing the Army appearances was fantastic. Meeting the recruits, stuff like that. Just really a good time in my life. I don't really know exactly what happens, but I'm assuming that the crunch of the housing market is starting to take effect in 2007, with that loan thing, all the loan thing crashing, with all those with all the loans at the bank and everything, caused a major disaster with the home stuff. And Bobby Ginn was a builder, and it must have really affected his business a lot, because as we pressed forward through the season, the race team was spending a lot more money than it was taking in through sponsorship. They were running 3 cars at the time. Sterling was running, and I was running, and I think they were running another car as well. So it really started to take its toll. There started to be some real problems, but there was major value in this race team because the Army sponsorship was coveted. The 01 team was super coveted as well. So the 01 car was pretty much fully funded, or well funded, and was really established. So with all the financial problems that were going on, and just to give you an example, I heard that there wasn't money to make payroll one week, so Jay made the payroll himself, and not including the drivers' salaries, just the payroll of the shop, I heard was just under $250,000 a week. So just think about how hard it is. That's not buying tires. That's not, that's payroll. So just think about, what it is to run one of these organizations. They built their own cars. They got their engines from Hendrick, but they built their own cars and did all their own work other than engines. So somehow or another, a deal got started to be brokered with DEI, because Junior was leaving DEI, and I think Budweiser was leaving DEI, and so that left them with just Martin Truex and Truex's sponsor. Or it may even, I don't even remember if Truex was still there or not. All I remember is merging with DEI and staying a part of the thing. So really, that's what the deal was going to be. It was going to really be the '01 car with Army sponsorship to go and merge with the '8 car and whatever they were going to line up for sponsorship. And to be honest with you, I don't really recall now exactly what the '01 car's deal was at the time. But the merger was done. The deal was made. So when we finished we finished '07, everything got moved. Well, I don't even think they even moved for sure. I'm not sure exactly what they did, but I know that the meetings that I went to were at DEI. The competition meetings were at DEI in '08. And what happened was I was supposed to be in an '01 car with Army sponsorship, and then there was the big mix-up at DEI, and Ryan Pemberton left. I guess he didn't want to go over and work at DEI or whatever the deal was. And so Ryan left. So this was January '08. So when I found out that the '01 car had been gutted, I'm like, dude, I really, that's not what I signed up for, you know? But DEI was honoring my contract, and I think I had a 2-year contract. And DEI honored every word of my contract with the '01 car. But when Ryan left, I called up the management at DEI, and John Story and Max Siegel, and I said, hey, man, I'd like to drive the '8 car. Because as Tony Gibson, that was, Junior's car. And Tony Gibson was a crew chief, and they had a really good team, and their cars were really fast. It was really a good deal. It was a good team. And it was something that I knew that I wouldn't have to worry with like I would trying to find a new crew chief for the '01 car and piece that all back together. And of course, they decided to do that, and the Army sponsorship came along, so all of a sudden the '8 cars, mostly funded, got good funding from the Army, and everything is really pretty well settled. Tony Gibson was excited to work with me. I was excited to work with him. What a electric atmosphere that was. It was really exciting time. And the cars were just crazy fast. We got to do some testing. Prior to the season and during the season some, and we kind of got to know each other, and I got to figure out the cars, and shoot, man, we hit the racetrack running. It was really fun. I mean, we didn't have any luck at Daytona, but we started running good. By the time we got to Vegas, we were running really good. Running top 10 at Vegas and top 10 again in Texas and Phoenix, top 5. Heck, Phoenix, we could have won the race for sure. The car was just unbelievable at Phoenix. We ran third at Richmond. Dude, we were just hauling. And we were qualifying second all the time. Like, we qualified second at Richmond, third at Pocono, second in the July race at Daytona, second at Indy, second at Pocono, second at Dover, second at Kansas. So we didn't get any poles, but man, we were just flying. The car was flying. We were leading races, running top fives, a lot of top fives and top tens. And so Rick Hendrick calls in May, and he's like, "What's your deal, with the Army?" And I start telling him that. "What's your deal with this? What's your deal with that?" Well, I knew Rick, but we weren't best friends, I knew him, but it's not like we talked in depth about things. Finally, he kept having these questions. Finally, I said, "What is it, Rick?" He said, "I just put you in that 5 car." And I'm like, "Man, I ain't going to drive full time." I said, "I'll drive that 5 car next year if you'll let me run 24 races like I'm running now." So anyway, we get off, get done talking there. And things go along pretty for a while. The car runs really good. We're hauling here and there. And we go to Pocono in the second Pocono race, and we sit on the outside pole, and we lead a bunch of that race, and we have trouble in the pits. There's no way we shouldn't have won that race if we hadn't had pit stop trouble, but we had problems in the pits, and we wound up 8th. So on Tuesday after that race, I'm at the competition meeting in DEI, the DEI headquarters. I'm there, sitting in the office, and my phone rings. I look at it, and it's Rick Hendrick. So I step out of the office, walk down the hall. "Hey, Mark, it's Rick." "Hey, man, what's up?" "Man, won't you drive that 5 car?" I said, "Well, I'll drive for 24 races, but I won't run full time." And, so that goes on, and we get off the phone. And a few weeks later, he calls me again. "Hey, man, won't you come drive his 5 car?" And at this time, I see that I'm not going to be able to go forward at DEI. My Sweetheart 24 race program is going to evaporate. Things are tightening up. The economy's, this is '08, so we're hitting that depression. Things are racing's starting to feel it, and I can see my deals going bad. So I really don't know what I'm going to do. I'm loving life and loving racing so much. I really don't want to quit, but I damn sure don't want to run full time. So I tell him the 3rd time I'll do 24 races. He says, "I tell you what, you run it full time 1 year, and I'll give you 24 races after that. 3-year contract, 2 years of 24 races. You'll run full time 1 year." And so I went home, and I had a long talk with Arlene about it, with Benny, my business manager. We discuss it for a long time, and I do a lot of soul searching, and I start daydreaming about what it would feel like to win one more time before that chapter of my life was closed. Just one more time. Gosh, wouldn't that be incredible to win a race one more time, a cup race? And Arlene and I agree on it that we'll do that deal. So that kind of sets the stage, and that doesn't really come together until pretty far down the road. But It's done. The deal's done before the Charlotte race, the fall Charlotte race. And, it's going to pair me up with Alan Gustafson. And so Alan's all excited. So Alan builds a new car for the Charlotte test. They have a test before Charlotte. And the plan was, I think it was either a 2 or 3 day test. And the last day of the test, the 8 car was going to go home and not test. And I was going to test the 5 car. And the first day or two, Casey Mears would test the 5 car. So they had a brand new car built. Alan and the guys had a brand new car built. And for me to drive. But of course, Casey didn't test that. Casey tested the car he was going to race there. And so the last day of the test, I show up at the 5 car garage, and they got that brand new baby sitting there for me, and I strap in it, and I go out on the racetrack, and it's pretty bad loose. And I come in, I tell them it's loose, and they make some changes on it, and I go back out, and it's better, but it's still loose. And I come in, and we talk about it, and they make some more adjustments. And Alan tells the guys, put a set of new tires on it. And I thought, new tires? Already? That's odd. To put new tires on it after 2 runs. But they do. And I roll out on the racetrack, and I go to the top of the scoreboard. Fastest car. And we were the fastest car the rest of the day. And that set the stage for 2009. That was the kind of stuff that I was strapping into for 2009. I was going to have to run full time, but I was going to get to drive some rocket ships. So that kind of sums up and brings us to the conclusion of 08 with a little looking glass into 09.
So what did Arlene think about this going back full time for one more year?
She didn't like it. She didn't like it. She wasn't happy about it. She was ready for me to retire. She was sick of racing. She'd quit going once Matt got old enough that he started school. She quit going to the races, and a lot of wives do, because, it's a good thing for the mother to be there when the kid's going to school. And what we did later on is started homeschooling Matt, so that wasn't as big a problem. But she never traveled like she had before she had Matt. She went to lots of races before we had Matt. But she wasn't happy about it, but she supported me and came to grips with it and moved beyond her disappointment that I wasn't going to be home more.
So we're going to go back to 2006 and then part of 2007, but this goes back to dirt track racing. I went to Eldora Speedway to do the Prelude to the Dream dirt late model race with a bunch of other NASCAR racers. What was your thought of that? You're going back to dirt since the first time in the late 70s.
Well, my thought on it was that this is a race for a good cause. It's an exhibition race. In other words, it's about putting on a show. Well, the jerks that NASCAR drivers are, you can't have that. You can't have a friendly, let's do something and put on a show for people who love racing. You can't do that. Hell no. It's got to be a freaking kill by death competition. So these guys start buying cars, practicing, testing, racing on the side, so they'll be good for this one race. It was totally bullshit. It was bullshit. First time I went, it was fun. Just went there to have fun and put on a show and not get overstressed about it. Our full-time job was stressful enough without adding something to it. And it was fun the first year I went. But that fun quickly started to erode as each year it got more and more and more intense. And so I'd say I had a good time the first year, but the second year that I went, about got hurt for no reason, and that was the year that J.J. Ailey spun out at least 6 times, and he spun, and I think I spun, and then I think somebody else hit me, and it almost got me hurt, and I was just done with it. I mean, I love Tony. I love I love the reason that we were doing the race. It was great, but we couldn't just go up there and just drive the cars and put on a show and have some fun and walk away. It had to be the race for $10 billion. It was like, it just took its own life, and just took all the fun away from it as they let it get more and more competitive and intense, rather than just going and doing something on the side that was fun.
So you're decades, after doing dirt track, in the late 70s, technology has caught up. They got these big time dirt late model cars. I mean, what was it like strapping in and racing a dirt car after all of those years?
It was fun. It was not any big deal. I mean, things were way different. And if you didn't have to win, you just go have fun. It was fun. Those things are beasts, and that racetrack is more challenging than most and real treacherous. And you got to run the wall, and that's not something I'm used to doing. But it was good. I mean, it was fine. First year, and I thought I ran pretty good the first year. The second time, I think I drove Billy Moyer's car, and I thought, boy, I'm gonna be good. We'll drive Moyer's car, and we were junk. I'm talking about junk. It was embarrassing. It wasn't any fun, and I thought it was me. And as it turned out, he didn't make the show. They raced the big race after that. That race was like on a Wednesday night, and then they raced a big show in the weekend. He didn't make the show, so evidently the car wasn't set up good for that racetrack at that time or something. I know he had won. He's won a lot of big races there and stuff. But long story short, it's okay if you're just going to have fun, but if you're going to try to show the world that you're the greatest that ever lived, which everybody decided they were going to go do, it's not, it wasn't that much fun.
Last thing we're going to touch on from the years 2007 and 8 is the car of tomorrow. Introduced into NASCAR, obviously a much different race car. What's your thoughts on the car of tomorrow?
So when they first introduced it, the first testing I did, they were terrible. It was a nightmare to drive, handled so bad. It was a nightmare. By the time I got into the 8 car, which was a COT full-time, cars drove pretty damn good. And then by the time I got into the 09 Hendrick COTs, they drove as good as any race cars I'd ever driven. Any. But in 06, they were the worst car I ever drove. And in 07, they were getting better, getting them driving better.
Did you have any issue? Or, obviously there was some, blowback as they were getting that program ready, and then it didn't last that long. I mean, did you have anything against it? Were you against when they were gonna introduce them into the series? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Nah, I mean, I was okay with it. I mean, I didn't care either way. Racing was racing, and it was evolution, and the car before it had become the Twisted Sister, and it was out of control. Cars looked like they'd been wrecked and turned over when they were brand new before they ever raced. And so that was kind of out of control. So it was time to do a new thing. Initially, they just handled really, really bad and horrible. But the guys really learned a lot working on them. And in a year, they drove much better. And in another year, they drove pretty good. By 2009, they drove as good as any of the race cars I'd driven in my prior career.
So that'll do it for episode number 44 of the Mark Martin Podcast, years 2007 and 2008. And we're going to get into a big one in the next episode, so make sure to hit your subscribe button. You're going to want to listen to 2009 here on the Mark Martin Podcast.
Thank you for subscribing and listening to the Mark Martin Podcast. Remember to give us a 5-star rating in your app store. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mark Martin POD. The Mark Martin Podcast is a production of the Accelerated Podcast Network.